Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to give ourselves the ability to set particular users to be admins or not. So this is relatively straightforward with the way that we've already got this system set up, so it's not going to take long to do at all. And essentially we're just going to put a flag next to a user's account to let us know if they're an admin. But we're also going to make this so in the future we can maybe add different user types. So you might have, some kind of moderator or admin, or different levels of ability to do things. So the first step to do is add a field in our database table, in our users database table, that essentially feeds back the user type. So by default this will be 0. And then perhaps an admin will be 1, and then something else will be 2. So let's go ahead and modify our database table. So I'm on the structure tab here. Let's go ahead and add one column at the end of this table, and I'm going to go ahead and call this type. Now I'm going to keep it as an int, and I'm going to set the length to 1. I'm also going to set the default value to 0. So let's go ahead and save that, and let's see how that looks with our 2 users that we already have registered. We've got type set to 0. Perfect. So at the moment both of these users are just normal users, blah blah blah. So now let's go ahead and create a page that we want to only allow an admin to access, which will be a user of type 1. So let's go ahead and open up let's say contact.php. Let's go ahead and copy the contents of this and save it as admin.php. So we can use, this is obviously just our sort of base template. Let's go ahead and change some of the details here. Okay, so this is our admin page. Now at the moment it's obviously accessible by everyone. So here, what we want is we first of all want the user to be logged in. That's easy. All we do is we add protect page here. So when I refresh, sorry, you need to be logged in to do that. Now we log in. Now when I go ahead and access admin now, it lets me, but I am not an admin. I am of user type 0. Now how can we quickly and easily grab this user type from our user and determine which type of user they are? Well, in init.php we have this user data function, which we've already seen a fair few times, and we can just add fields of data that we want to retrieve. So if I say retrieve type, this will then retrieve the type. So if we just go down here somewhere and just echo user data type, then this will just output a 0 at the top here, and then when we change that, that will be reflected here, and it will change to a 1. So what do we need to do now? Well, let's go over to general.php. We've got this logged in redirect function and protect page. We're already using protect page, which is good, but now we want another function to kick a user away from a page if they're not an admin. Okay, so I'm going to say function admin underscore protect. So this is pretty much going to come after protect page, because we want to be able to be logged in to obviously be an admin. So we're going to use protect page, and underneath this we're going to call this admin admin protect. I suppose it would have been best to call it protect admin, but I think admin protect sounds better. So here what we do is we say if, now we don't need to check the user's logged in because we're already using protect page. We want to say user data type is equal to 0. Well, what do we want to do? Well, we want to kick them away from this page. So I'm just going to send them to index.php and then just exit there. So when I click on this now, undefined variable user data. Okay, that's fair enough. That's because we don't have the user data variable basically global, so it can be used within this function. So we can just use global user data here. So now I'm going to go ahead and refresh. Now this is an interesting problem what's happening here? Well, we would assume this to be correct because we are accessing the data type, the user data type that does equal 0. So why isn't it redirecting us to index.php? Well, the reason being is that I'm using a type comparison here as well, and this is an integer. If I was to do that, that would be fine because we're grabbing data from our database. It's returning it as a string. So I just need a double equals here, so I'm not checking type as well. Okay, so now I'm going to click on that again, and it's redirected us to index.php. So it's not letting us access admin.php, which is good. However, let's go ahead and change our rights to this. So I'm going to go ahead and edit this record, and I'm going to change type to 1. Now you may want to be careful here, because if you want, say, type 1, 2, and type 3, you obviously don't want to say if it equals 0, redirect. You might want to have some kind of switch and determine what to do with the user depending. There's loads of different ways we can do this, but it's all about flexibility really. So I've changed my user type. I'm now going to try and access admin, and it's worked. So I've accessed admin.php because I have a user ID or a user type of 1. So we can obviously do this in page as well. So for example, on the home page, we could go ahead and let's just open that first of all, index. So we could say if user data type is equal to 1, echo admin, for example. And there we go. And then when I go ahead and remove that, that won't be displayed anymore. Now this is all well and good, but we have to make this check every single time. Now what happens if we change a database table, database field, or something like that, or we change different access codes around? It would be a lot better to create functions based on your different levels. So for example, let's go ahead and close this, and we'll keep that open, but we'll open up users here. So we could create a function called is_admin, for example, and we could pass through a user ID, not escape this data, but cast this to an integer, because we know user ID should always be an integer. And then we can return true or false whether the user is an admin or not. So I could say return MySQL result, and I'm going to run a query in here, and I'm going to return account. Now if all of this is equal to 1, then I want to return true, otherwise I want to return false. And the reason being is I'm going to select the count based on the user's ID and whether their type is set to 1. So I could say select count, user ID from users where user ID is equal to user ID and type is equal to 1. So 1 is specific to an admin, so is admin. If the user ID has the type 1, so i.e. if these two match, this will return 1, then we return true from the function. So now we can actually go ahead and we can incorporate this into our admin protect function, and we could say if is admin, we could do user data user ID because we're pulling that in here, and then we could say is this equal to true? Well, if it is equal to true, if it is equal to false, then tell them to go away. So let's just go ahead and test this out. Let me just go and edit my record here, set this to 0, go. So that's gone now. Well, I've removed it, but So admin.php now can no longer access. So this means that wherever we are on a page, we can just go ahead and say if is admin, and we can pass through session user ID, which is the user ID here from the session. And if that is equal to true, then we can echo admin or do something else. So this makes it a lot easier if we ever need to go ahead and change these conditions in here. So I'm not an admin at the moment, but if I was, then we'd get that little admin message up there. So that's basically how to allow yourself to determine different levels of access on a site. And we've looked at a standard user and an admin, and there we go, that's it. You can play around with this and give users different rights, create different access levels as well, and create different functions that return something based on whether a user is an admin or something else.